All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike here. Now arrived at my train of thought. It's time to talk about the Miami Mock Mondays Volume 4. And I know you're probably wondering about my thoughts on the Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb releases. I did do a video on that a couple hours ago. It's up on social media. You can check that out on all my platforms. Anyway, let's get to the Triple M Volume 4, and I did two things differently with this one. The first thing you'll probably notice is that none of these names are guys I've drafted previously. So there will be no Drew Allar, there will be no Nittany Sutton, who I've drafted in two of the first three drafts apiece. There will also be no quarterback here in this mock. And I'm going to try to take a different approach and focus on other needs that this team has. Also, when it comes to this mock, there will still be the player comps and their ceilings, as well as guys that size-wise or stylistically speaking, these guys compare to. Let's not waste any more time, and let's get to business with the 11th pick in the draft. And with this 11th pick, the board shook out fairly well for me, and as I mentioned, there's no DDS, but I do need a pass rusher, especially after what happened with Bradley Chubb today. And with that, Kevin Falk decided to fall to me at the 11th pick. And when it comes to Keldon Falk, the production obviously, unfortunately, I would say, was not there as much as it could be. But the talent is there, and the versatility is certainly there. We can go outside, or he can go inside as an edge rusher, or inside on defensive as defensive tackle in the event of the passing downs like thirds and longs, which I do like that kind of disruptive figure. And perfectly, ironically, the guy that compares fairly well to him stylistically is Calais Campbell, whom, as we know, is as sturdy as it gets when it comes to the NFL, and as productive as it gets when it comes to being a pass rusher, whether it's on the interior or the exterior. And watching Calais Campbell be the leader that he was in 2024, that was really good stuff to see, because Campbell just does not age. He's just a naturally great player and has been a tremendous one for a decade plus, whether he's been in Arizona or Jacksonville or Miami or wherever he has gone, in Baltimore, wherever he's gone in his career. Calais Campbell is just nothing but productive. So if you're telling me that is his stealing, that works for me, and I'm perfectly okay with Calais Campbell 2.0, if you will, if Keldon Falk can become such a thing. Now, the next pick, I had to go with the offensive line to get some beef, and we needed an offensive lineman because obviously the release of James Daniels happened earlier today as well. It's kind of the secondary bit of business, him and Westbrook-Akine being released. And in this case, it takes me to Oregon, and I decided to go with Emmanuel Pregnon, guard out of Oregon. He played some at USC as well. I need the big, beefy guard that could be that kind of road grader, that kind of mauler that this offensive line truly does need to have. I know the zone blocking scheme works. Sure, I'm cool with it. It obviously works well with Aaron Brewer, and it works well with a lot of this offensive line. But you need a mauler on the interior as well, and a guy that a lot of us wanted Miami to draft last year is a guy that this guy, Pregnon, compares to Tate Ratledge. And obviously, I've drafted his brother in a couple of my mocks in the last few weeks. And Tate Ratledge, I think, would be a pretty good comp here. As a mauler, big dude, big kind of physical style. The strength is there. Good in pass pro, great in run pro, especially this Pregnon. And I think he fits in this realm as well. It's such a deal in the NFL, considering Devon Achane and Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright. Get those guys a mauler. Get those guys a dude that can create the lanes and the holes for them. So Emmanuel Pregnon was the pick here. My next pick, corner. I want a cornerback on the outside. I want an exterior style corner who can take care of business in all situations and circumstances. And the guy that ended up being in this situation was Will Lee III out of Texas A&M. 6'1", 6'2-ish, depending on where you go here. And He's good in terms of the style. When it comes to his physical style, when it comes to his competitiveness, the high motor is there. And though one comp has him closer to Eli Apple, it's a little concerning considering Eli Apple in his career is not really panned out, but he's a guy who's got some good instincts and who can read pretty well. He can break up some passes with the length and the height. The speed is, I would say, not the most ideal, as in he shouldn't be covering a burner, but with the height and the length, I think he can break up a good amount of passes at the NFL level. He compares somewhat to Isaac Yiadom. He compares somewhat to Eli Apple, which that may not be great considering his time as a Dolphin and his time previously. But he also compares to DJ Turner from the Bengals. And I think that is a comp that I could totally live with. And I do like a physical corner as long as it's not overly too grabby with the PIs and holdings, legal context, things like that. And he could come up in the run support to some degree, which I dig that. I do like a more corner that can play versatilely and kind of be there for all seasons, all reasons. So this was the comp here for Will Lee III. That was the kind of synopsis on him. The next player I took in this draft, receiver. I wanted to get a burner. Now, normally, I would go with a bigger receiver in this class. You've noticed in all my mocks previously, I've gone with the taller receivers, the lengthier receivers, ones that could go 50-50 with it, or ones that are just height. I just need a little bit more height and physicality amongst the receiver core. This time, I decided to go with more of the Tyreek Hill replacement, and the most dynamic at the board this time was Zachariah Branch, who I could have taken with the previous pick, but I wanted to roll the dice to see if I can get him here, and I pulled the trigger at 87 with Zachariah Branch, who has shown himself at USC and Georgia to be incredibly dynamic. A guy you can line up wherever, and he can go to work and handle business wherever he has to be. Is it a little bit much of the same thing with Waddle in Washington? Yeah, you could argue that. But in the case of Branch, I think his comp being Zay Flowers is a pretty solid one, where Zay is really good wherever you line him up. In the slot, bet. He's a good route runner, and he's more gadget, where just get him the ball in space and let him eat. And I think Zachariah Branch can be that such a guy. Get him the ball in reverses, get him the ball on screens, give him the ball down the seam as a deep threat. Is he an outside receiver? Probably not, but a guy you can line up in the slot and be dangerous. So that's kind of where I went with this draft. I don't think I'm going to do that going forward, but I wanted to try that out for this draft here. The next pick here, back to the offensive line, working on that, and I'm kind of expecting Austin Jackson to get released at this point. So Caleb Tierman turned out to be the pick here. Now, he does have some versatility, and he can play some guard, as he has done in his career. And he probably checks out as a guy who could certainly play guard in the NFL. But in this case, the physical right tackle or tackle to be who's got some good swing ability, I would line him up at right tackle and let him go to work and let him see if he can sink or swim. And most Northwestern offensive linemen have seemed to do well in the NFL. And I think he's got a pretty good floor, and his pro comp, I guess his ceiling, if you will, is actually Deion Dawkins. Now, he's also compared to Rob Havenstein, currently in the NFL as well, based off his massive frame, because he is a big dude at 6'7", 325. I'm not going to do the shrug, but he is a massive guy. And if you're telling me that he can be a good pass protector on the outside, which I want out of my tackles for obvious reasons, and the versatility in the event that he doesn't work out at tackle, okay, cool, maybe he slides into guard, but obviously with my second round pick, that's not the play. At least that's not the play initially. I'm all for this kind of big, monstrous, beefy wall that we should have built a long time ago. So give me the two pillars on both sides of the line, Paul on the left and Tierman on the right. I'm perfectly okay with that, with three dudes who can move on the interior. So give me that as my last round 3 pick. We're going to go to round number 4, and you didn't think I'd have a mock draft without a Nittany line in it, did you? In this case, it's Zachy Wheatley, who is a safety, and a kind of all-purpose safety, a guy who I've seen for the last few years come up and run stuffing, which is really good stuff to see. He can play the pass. He's a good center fielder. He's a take the ball from you type of guy. He's a big play type of guy, and obviously I want that out of my defense. And this defense, I hope gets closer in style in terms of taking the ball from you to the 2020 style defense. Not necessarily the Brian Flores zero blitz happy style, but the take the ball style from you defense that 2020 unit had. Zachy Wheatley ideally could get you there. And one guy that he kind of compares to is an old Dolphin that we know all too well, Javon Holland, who was a kind of sort of take the ball from you, but more or less it's the versatility that Holland provided. It's the ability to cover guys when needed. It's the ability to play the run when needed. It's the ability to play center field when necessary. And that's the kind of guy I think we really could use for the future. Now, I don't know what happens with Minka. Does Minka get cut? And maybe part of this is with a Minka not being a Dolphin mindset, but I kind of want that in my safety. Sure, would it be good to have a true thumper like a Cam Chancellor, what he used to be? Yes. Not quite there with Wheatley, but I think we can get a all-purpose safety somewhere in this draft. So give me Zachy Wheatley with this pick in round number 5. The next pick, I wanted to go get a linebacker, and this one kind of makes a double-up situation for the pass rushing / edge rusher situation. And this is Jack Kelly here. And in the case of Kelly, he's more so an outside linebacker, 3-4 type of linebacker who can get home, but he can also be pretty good in coverage and pretty good as a side-to-side type of linebacker. And he checks out as a Calvinoid type. He checks out as a Calvinoid type of clone where he can cover if he needs to against tight ends or running backs out in the flats, or he can also get home and cause some havoc when it comes to getting to the quarterback. I don't think he's going to be an op like Van Noy was secretly, but I do think that Jack Kelly can be a pretty solid linebacker in the NFL, especially as an edge rusher in a 3-4 scheme. And considering what Hafley kind of suggested, this could be some 3-4 mixed with some 4-3. I think Kelly could fit that scheme for Hafley. And finally, I wanted to go with the tight end spot, since obviously this has usually been the Drew Allar portion of this draft. But I wanted to do this a little differently, as I mentioned. And Sam Roush was the tight end in round 7, tight end from Stanford. Now, he is more of the blocking style tight end, but he's got a little bit of receiver ability in him. He's had a decent year last season with the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been pretty bad lately. He's had a decent year as a receiver, but he does check out absolutely as a blocking tight end. And I guess you can see the theme that I have had this year or this time with some physicality, with 3 dudes who are absolutely capable of blocking up front and making room for the Waddles, the Washingtons, the Agent, and in this case, Branch, to be the speed guys on the perimeters. And I think in this case, he compares to Luke Stover from the Titans, a former tight end who not necessarily the receiving threat, but very much a blocking threat, very much a guy who can make an impact when it comes to the run game and be a little bit more of an every down tight end where I can have him block if I need to. I can have him get some receptions if I want to. I think that's the kind of the route I wanted to think of. I was hoping he'd be a little bit more of a Zach Ertz clone, but he's not quite there. He's more or less a guy who I think could be very sturdy in the run game and be that extra blocker that Ewers, or if it's Tua somehow if he's on the roster, or whomever the quarterback shall be in 2026. So there you have it. That is my round 4, or my volume 4, if you will, of the Miami Mocks. And when it comes to my content coming up later this week, it will be power rankings, but it won't be hockey and it won't be basketball. This is going to be the off week for that. Next week will be more NBA power rankings, since we're not going to get any basketball NBA wise until Thursday. So there will be no power rankings there, and there will be no hockey ones until next week. So that's when both of those will happen. As for this week, it will be the final power rankings, if you will. Now that the playoffs are obviously done. with the NFL for the 2025/26 season. And there will be some obvious rankings and listings. Seattle obviously will be number 1, and the Jets and Raiders are fighting for 32nd. Obviously, I'm going to figure that out, and you'll probably get a little bit of a teaser in the next few seconds. Las Vegas, you cross the Mendoza line, and you're the first pick in the NFL draft. You will also be the first stop of my next train of thought.